All right, so once again, time to get into my Ben Buzz top 25. So teams like North Texas, San Diego State, they're just on the outside looking in from those group of fives, Memphis and USF as well. Boise State's another one too, but just not quite there yet. And then TCU has had some struggles, and then Duke is one of the favorites to win the ACC, which is crazy. And then SMU, the loss to Wake Forest is kind of what keeps them out. So that's what I kind of went with for those. And then dropped out. I mean, Tennessee, listen, the loss, and also I don't understand with some of these 3-loss teams where I feel like they're just simply getting the benefit of the doubt because they're SEC, because you think about who they beat. Well, they lost to Georgia, they lost to Oklahoma, they lost to Alabama. Sure, but like who have they beat? Is it Mississippi State in overtime? That might be it. So that's the only thing with them. And then Houston's close. I mean, that West Virginia loss, what are you doing? Houston just wrecked your season, but I'm thinking they'll get back on track this week. And then Cincinnati, it's another one, but I mean, that loss to Utah wasn't great, and they weren't competitive in it. And then Navy, just as I ranked them, then they lose. Right before they played Notre Dame, I figured that would be when they would finally lose, but it's fitting. I mean, I get it. They played a great North Texas team, but man, sucks for Navy, but they end up dropping out. Now here's where you get into my top 25. Now, JMU, I know maybe I'm a little early on this, but I think James Madison does make the cut. They've been dominating teams. Their only loss was somewhat competitive, actually, against the Louisville team that is doing really well. JMU is really good, and I think you got to give them their respect. Same thing with Pitt, where they have that tough loss to Louisville as well, and then a road loss to West Virginia that Houston made look better, as we talked about earlier, and Pitt has just been really great. And I know maybe I'm just following what the CFP did. You know what I mean? That is kind of true. But Pitt does have a solid resume. It's not terrible. The win over Florida State, and I know that doesn't look great, but they only have the losses to Louisville, and they've looked great, and I think they've really come back since then. They were out at Louisville. They only lost by a touchdown. So Pitt's been different since that game. I think they deserve it. Then Washington as well. And if you think, maybe they should be higher with that win over Illinois, and I know I had put them in. I have been putting them in a lot more than the AP did. The AP finally did it. Cowards. But I couldn't put them above Michigan. I mean, they weren't competitive against Michigan. It's all it is. And then Michigan wasn't competitive against USC, so that's where you kind of get those 3 teams there. But Washington, I really like what they're doing with Damon Williams. Now, I think they could do pretty good. They're 6-2. There's a good chance they win out up until that Oregon game, where they'll have a chance to fight for a playoff spot, maybe in Husky Stadium. We'll see. But they do have that chance. Same thing with Michigan. They can win out and then have a chance against Ohio State to play for their season. Both teams could be at 9-2 with a chance to maybe make an upset happen and end up making it. And then USC is another one as well. Now, USC has a tough schedule. I mean, they play Oregon. They play Iowa. USC's got a tough sledding. And I would be surprised if they don't take another loss, but I would say they're probably out. But out of those 4 2-loss Big Ten teams, wouldn't be surprised if one of them slipped up there. And that brings me to my Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, they're also a 2-loss in the Big Ten, and they kind of control their own destiny. They got number 6 Oregon today, and then number 20 USC on the road, and then Nebraska, Michigan State. So it's very possible that Iowa ends up finding a way to upset some of those teams. I don't know. I think they have the ability to. We'll see what ends up happening. Honestly, I'm just really worrying about the Oregon game, honestly. So that one's really going to be interesting, but I think Iowa deserves this ranking, and they were close with Indiana. And if they were to win out, they have enough ammunition where you could say at 10-2 with wins over USC and Oregon, and with a close loss to Indiana, maybe you could potentially say Iowa does deserve to be in the playoff. Now, that would be pretty cool. Now, I'd still doubt that. I mean, I'm still been worried about the Oregon game. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's what I'm thinking about right now, but I think they deserve the number 20 spot. The CFP also gave them, and even if you say, you're following with the CFP, dude, I had Iowa ranked last week, so, I also had them then. And then Texas. Now, I know I had them out, and I think that was deserved. I mean, they have the losses, and then they've been bad against Kentucky. They just haven't played great. And we finally had a great performance out of Texas, where they almost threw it away in the fourth quarter, actually, where if Vandy gets that onside kick, I don't know, but they were dominating the whole game. Texas is pretty good. Now, I would be surprised. I think their schedule is too difficult. I think they have to win out. If they do win out, I do think they deserve it. I want to say that right now. I do think they deserve it. They're 10-2 with some of the teams that they're playing. I do think they deserve it, but once they lose again, I think it's over, and they've already had so many bad performances where they should have lost, and then, they already have the 2 losses. Now, Miami is a tough one. I have them at 18. I don't know how to feel about Miami. They've just been so weird, and it really feels weird because it felt like they were number 1. It felt like they were at least top 5, but they continue to fall off the rails. So they're at 18. Missouri's at 17, and honestly, this sucks with Prbula out. So we'll have to see how they are without him. It honestly is just so unfortunate, but they haven't started losing yet without him. They did lose that Vanderbilt game, but it's just 2 losses. So I'm going to wait until I see them play without Prbula. And if they lose to Texas A&M, maybe, I don't know if they fall out, but they'll fall down for sure. Then OU. Now, I know maybe I should have them higher, and maybe that's true, but that Tennessee game, that was huge that they were able to get that one, and that Auburn, turns out Auburn's not great, but Auburn's been close with it about everybody. It's like Mississippi State. It's like those SEC teams that are at the bottom. It's like they were really close to not being at the bottom, but OU's still pretty good, and I think they really saved their season with that Tennessee win. So OU, and their kicker was great. And I think Mateer, I mean, it just sucks the way they have to play, and Mateer's got to play so great for them to win, but OU's really good. They're at 16. Then at 15, I had Vandy. I know, but they still have that Missouri win. They've still been impressive. They had the LSU win that doesn't look great now, I know, but the Alabama loss is impressive, and then the Texas loss, I mean, those are 2 players that were supposed to be huge in the SEC, and I know Texas hasn't looked like that, but Alabama is certainly towards the top. I still think they deserve top 15, and I mean, I know I had them at 6, and I do think they deserve that, but man, I mean, Vandy still has a chance for a playoff, but they really squandered it. I mean, I think they will win out, maybe, but man, it would have been really nice if they were able to get that one, because playoff Vandy, we'll see if we see it. I'm hoping we see playoff Vandy, but it's unfortunate that they have this setback, so we'll see if they end up getting back in this. I'm not a Vandy fan, by the way. I'm just a fan of the fact that they've been bad for years, and it's kind of cool to see them do pretty good, like Indiana. So really interesting to see what happens with Vanderbilt. And then Utah. Utah is really interesting, that blowout win. I mean, Cincinnati, they just dominated. Utah's really good, and I was really surprised how high they were in the CFP committee, but I think Utah's pretty good, and I think they deserve that number 14 spot, so they're up there at 14. Then Virginia's at 13. Now, Virginia is a really interesting one. I mean, once again, every week, I'm like, I don't know what Virginia is. What are they? Feels like every week they have some sort of scare, and you don't know what to do with Virginia. I had predicted them to lose to Cal, and, I mean, they almost did. So, I don't know. Virginia's so weird. Now, they are one of the big players in the ACC because somehow that NC State loss is at a conference. But Virginia, I mean, they're good, I think. I think they just contend with everybody, and they played at the opponent's level no matter what. So regardless of what you want to say about how they're getting these wins, they are winning, so they do deserve the number 13 spot. And then a team that also lost to NC State, Georgia Tech, their undefeated streak was broken. I had not believed in them for weeks, and I said, like, I don't know. But then last week I finally caved, and I said, you know what, I got to stop thinking about that. I got to just, give them their respect and put them up there. And, of course, that's when they lose. Just have the worst timing, don't I? But Georgia Tech's pretty good. And then Notre Dame at 11. I think that makes sense. Now, they dominated USC. They're pretty good. And, I mean, I don't know. Am I doing it just because of the logo? I don't know. I think Notre Dame is good, and I would keep them at a top 10 for now. But if they're 10-2, they're going to get into the playoffs, and they're one of those teams that I think will just get in because of their logo. But I do think they deserve the number 11 spot. Now, as you get into my top 10, Louisville made their first appearance. I know I was a little late on this. Now, I had them. I mean, the AP still hasn't done it. They're at like 14 or something like that. But I think they deserve that number 10 spot, the way they've been beating teams and the way they avoided that upset against Virginia Tech. And they beat teams like James Madison, Pittsburgh, where now those teams are like, hey, we lost to Louisville. Hey, like, look at our resume. We lost to Louisville. Where it's just like, Louisville's actually building up quite the resume. Pitt, JMU, Miami, I think you have to give them credits for that. It's just the loss in OT against Virginia. Virginia's close with everybody. And then Texas Tech at number 9 makes sense now. This is so huge. This 8v9. BYU, Texas Tech. It's going to be a huge matchup. I'm really hyped to see what happens in this one. I think it could be close. I don't know, but Texas Tech's hosting. College Game Day is going to be there. I'm really hyped for this one. So, I mean, we'll see. But as you see in here, I do think BYU deserves the head on them. They are undefeated. They've looked great in a lot of games. Now, they have been upset alert on games like Colorado, but they cleaned it up. BYU's really good. And then Oregon is another team that has a tough game today. And I think they do deserve number 7, but I think just what keeps them out of the top 5, where I do think they have that type of caliber. But you look at their resume, what is the best win? Do you still say it's Penn State? At the time it was. I think you still say it is. But if you say, like, logistically, who's the best now? I mean, is it Northwestern? I don't know. But Oregon's pretty good. I got them at 7. And Ole Miss. Now, this is a team where if they win out, they control their own destiny, honestly. Ole Miss only has the loss to Georgia. They're pretty good, and they were really tooth and nail with Georgia. I think Ole Miss is still pretty good, and, I mean, they have some solid wins. Ole Miss is good, and obviously it's another thing where we were kind of like, everyone's kind of like, oh, well, we beat LSU, and then where's LSU? It's kind of like, oh, well, we beat Clemson. Where's Clemson? Where it's just like, it's really unfortunate how some of those wins age, but I got Ole Miss at 6. And now, once again, here's my top 5, and I mean, it's just not changing. I know. Georgia's at 5, and then they lost to Alabama, who's at 4, and Alabama has that loss to Florida State, but they've looked great since then. So Georgia's pretty good, Alabama's pretty good. And then Texas A&M, I mean, that LSU win was so huge. We'll see what happens when they go to Missouri. I think they have a good chance in that one, especially with unfortunate injuries for Missouri. I know it's unfortunate. And then Indiana, I think, deserves number 2. They've just been murdering teams. We'll see what happens when they go to Penn State, and without Surratt, their wide receiver, who's in the running for the Blitnikoff. We'll see if he ends up playing or if he ends up coming back for that injury. That's unfortunate for them, but I still think Indiana deserves that. And then Ohio State. I mean, listen, the top 5 is just not changing. Everything else has been moving around a lot, but I mean, the top 5, I feel like that's really what's been getting set in stone. So we're really starting to figure out the top 5, and then the top 10 is still kind of suspect, I think. Like, the top 5, but then 6 to 10, I'm still unsure about. But then, like, the middle of the pack, like, 11 to 15 to, like, 18, we kind of, like, have a lot of those teams. But, I mean, look, like, Texas is, like, I didn't have them in last week. And then Iowa, they've only been in. And then you look, Pitt and JMU are new, where it's just, like, everything is moving around so much. And, I mean, that's what the beauty of college football. That's what I really love, is that we have so much of this parity. And even though the top 5 is kind of settling in, I think there are teams that aren't in that top 5 that can win a national championship, namely, like, Ole Miss, Oregon, maybe Texas Tech when they're at their best. I don't know. And maybe even say Notre Dame. They made it to the game last year. But honestly, this is so interesting. And, I mean, just because we're figuring out the top 5, I mean, look at the rest of it. Compare that to my last week's. It's so different. So college football, I love the parity that we got going on in the sport. And we'll have to see how this ends up faring, because we got a lot of ranked matchups. Not too many, but once again, we got a lot of trap games. That's the kind of point in the year that we're at. So we'll see how those end up aging. And we'll see how that ends up completely warping, which I will see if it does. But we'll see if that ends up warping the top 25.